Hello and welcome to Henry Recommends, the show where I, DisRegarding Henry, recommend to you movies that I like, and that you might like too. In this episode, I'd like to recommend what I feel is the first true masterpiece of writer-director Terrence Malick's illustrious career, Days of Heaven. Set in the early 20th century, the story follows a love triangle that develops between a wealthy, dying wheat farmer, played by Sam Shepard, and a woman, Abby, played by Brooke Adams, who he thinks is the sister of one of his workers, Bill, played by Richard Gere. In reality, Abby is Bill's girlfriend, and they have recently fled the city after Bill accidentally killed his boss. At first, they plan to simply inherit the farmer's money after he passes, but it doesn't turn out to be that simple. Abby begins falling in love with both men, and soon jealousies, suspicions, and anger are boiling to the surface. Along for the ride is Bill's younger sister, played by the extraordinary Linda Mons, who impartially narrates the story and observes all the romantic entanglements that take place around her. After the relative coldness of Badlands, Days of Heaven shows Malick's sensitivity, his emotional depths beginning to emerge. He takes a story of poverty, social divisions, love, betrayal, jealousy, tragedy, a story filled with lots of melodrama, and he makes it feel subtle, human, and real. This film sees Malick taking bold steps forward in terms of his stylistic development. Whereas Badlands contained a comparatively heavy amount of dialogue and narrative, this film moves in a decisively more experimental direction. We can see his style really developing here. With a major studio, Paramount Pictures, behind him, and a much larger budget, $3 million compared to the $300,000 he had on Badlands, Malick was allowed the opportunity to play around more, to take risks, to discover things along the way. It wasn't easy for him though. Once again, as with his first film, Malick's unconventional working methods led to clashes with some of the more experienced members of the crew. During production, he would regularly postpone the shooting of dramatic scenes to capture images of wildlife and nature around the location, and he would continue to shoot scenes long past the time of day that was then considered ideal. Despite frequent protests that there wouldn't be enough light to expose the film, Malick simply shot and shot and shot until there wasn't any light left, giving birth to this film's very distinct look, which is perpetually bathed in the golden light of magic hour, that brief time of day just before the sun sets behind the horizon. As the production began going over schedule, original cinematographer Nestor Almendros, who was beginning to go blind around this time, was forced to leave due to prior commitments, and left Haskell Wexler to finish the film, which later led to some controversy when Almendros won an Oscar for the film's cinematography, while Wexler was snubbed. During editing, the film's style changed drastically, apparently scripted and even shot in a much more conventionally dramatic fashion. Malick and his editor Billy Weber then spent over 2 years slowly rebuilding the film from the ground up. They would jettison nearly every line of dialogue and bring in Linda Mons to record a voiceover, the vast majority of which was improvised by the young actress herself. The editing process was so lengthy that it resulted in a breakdown of Malick's relationship with producer Bert Schneider, who was one of the founders of the legendary independent studio BBS, which had put out groundbreaking releases like Easy Rider and The Last Picture Show. Malick took so long finishing Days of Heaven that Schneider was apparently forced to mortgage his house to secure completion funds. The stress of dealing with the film and its difficult director allegedly left Schneider disillusioned with the film industry. This wound up being, basically, the last film he would ever produce. Again, like Badlands, Days of Heaven was met with a relatively muted response from contemporary critics, but time has shown just how innovative Malick really was. Seen today, it feels, despite being a period film made nearly 4 decades ago, astonishingly modern. It delicately balances gritty historical realism with exquisite visual beauty, a surface which often seems to distract people from the extremely subtle yet passionately felt emotional undercurrents. Malick moves through this story confidently, effortlessly, foregoing a conventional narrative and choosing instead to accumulate moments and observations in both character and setting that immerse us in his world, that creates such a feeling of authenticity. Certainly he's helped by the rich period detail in Jack Fisk's production design, the haunting and evocative score by Ennio Morricone, and the masterful editing by Billy Weber, which anchors those little moments around some tremendous set pieces, including a gorgeous sunset harvesting sequence and an attack of locusts. On top of that is Linda Mons's incredible voiceover, which offers a series of thoughts and musings often not directly linked to what we are seeing on screen, but serving to enhance its emotional resonance in oblique ways. Mons gives easily one of the most natural and spontaneous performances you'll ever see from a child actor, even with Richard Gere, Brooke Adams, and Sam Shepard all delivering some of their best work. Mons manages to steal every scene she's in. Days of Heaven is available on Blu-ray, courtesy of the Criterion Collection, spine number 409, and it's a must-own, naturally. A great release in every possible way of what is undeniably one of the most breathtakingly beautiful films ever made. That's why Henry recommends Days of Heaven. Sayonara.